Shamari, would you participate in community-directed spending?
Absolutely, 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 without a doubt. And you can even take the new fancy label off of it, community-directed spending. It's earmarks. Absolutely, I would participate in earmarks because we need it, because this state has too often been left behind without it, because the communities that we have that make up the majority geographically of this district don't receive the benefits of it. Mayor Haygood in Tuskegee, they need things. Mayor Reed here in Montgomery, they need things. Eddie Lowe, they need things out in Phoenix City. We need things down in Mobile, right? We can't fix our hospitals in Union Springs and Monroe County if we do not take advantage of every single resource that we can to direct spending to our communities. They are far too important. So absolutely, I would be a leading proponent of it. It must be done ethically, it must be done responsibly, and it must be done for projects that have a legitimate public interest. We cannot allow it to be abused, but the state of Alabama falls far too short in the investments that need to be made in our communities. And so in Congress, I would be at the front lines, right after meeting with every single mayor, every single county commissioner, every single school board member, every single elected, to take what they need, to come up with a plan of action, to be able to take that back to Washington, D.C., and try to bring the funding home for that. The job of a congressman is relatively simple. You go to Washington and you bring home the resources. That is the name of the job. Power of appropriations. It's laid out in the Constitution. So we have to do it. I would be very serious about it. I would be very intentional about it. And I won't leave a dime on the table that can be spent in District 2.
Thank you. Caroline, would you be willing to participate in community-directed spending?
Absolutely. I grew up in rural America. I know that we have very dire infrastructure needs. We have healthcare needs. And when it comes to state funding, a lot of our state funding goes north of Montgomery. I think in 2022, about 80% of state funding went north of Montgomery, entirely north of this district. So it's even more imperative that whoever represents this district is actively fighting for funding, but fighting for it in a smart way. We don't need to be throwing money recklessly at and allowing our federal government to throw money at policy initiatives. We need dollars that are going to make an impact in the lives of every family in this district. As I mentioned before, there are communities that don't have sewage. There are communities that don't have access to health care. Troy, Alabama desperately needs a new post office. And of course, we cannot ignore the significance of the Port of Mobile and the opportunities that it holds, obviously despite the longshoremen strike that we see going on right now. I will fight for funding for our big cities, for our rural communities, and for everywhere in between, because I know that there's some real tangible needs that with a bit of responsible spending, we make an investment that opens doors to opportunities, jobs, and really the future of this district. But what we also have to recognize is that we have too few folks in Washington that are being good stewards of our funds. We have so many folks that are trying to fund their policy initiatives instead of bringing home dollars to where they can count the most. And as a product of rural Alabama, as someone who is raising my children here, I will fight for every dollar that will make a difference in the impact Alabama families.